Patsy Widakuswara has covered the White House for Voice of America since 2018, but has now been banned from doing her job as the Trump administration seeks to dismantle America's international broadcaster. However, she and some colleagues are taking legal action to fight for the existence of VOA and its sister organizations. So, Patsy, maybe you can talk a little bit about the immediate implications around the world.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to hear a lot of anecdotes from our various affiliates. So just to give a little review, VOA broadcasts through 3,500 affiliates around the world, radio, TV, as well as digital. And they are missing us, and that vacuum is being filled by our adversaries, by Russia TV, by CGTN, by Iran, and by extremist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who's broadcasting their message in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other places. No one is there to push back and tell America's story since VOA has been silenced. And I think that is a really, really crucial question that Americans have to answer. What are we going to do about the 360 million weekly audience around the world who depend on us, on VOA, to provide crucial information? And now that vacuum is being filled by our adversaries.
So what exactly does this mean for your work? Can you work at all?
No. I cannot even go inside the White House because even though my White House pass still works, but then I'm in there on official capacity as a VOA reporter, and I'm not allowed to do that.
And this is true worldwide, so your colleagues are not allowed to work?
Basically, the effect is the silencing of the Voice of America.
So Kari Lake has her own vision about Voice of America. Let's listen into what she said at a conference just a month ago.
I told President Trump when he called me and asked me to lead the Voice of America that we will focus on accurate and honest reporting. It won't become Trump TV, although I think the ratings would be very high. We are fighting an information war, and there's no better weapon than the truth, and I believe VOA can be that weapon.
To us, the most important thing is what she has said last, right? Which was on March 15th, the same day that we got our administrative leave order, saying all these things about our journalism, which is really detrimental. For example, that we are terrorist sympathizers, that we are radical left-leaning, that we are unsalvageable. So that is really the core of this case, is that we believe this is the effort of executive through the defendants Kari Lake and Victor Morales of basically shutting down our journalism. And this is an overreach of the executive function as well as a violation of laws that protect the First Amendment.
You just had a meeting with your lawyers. Tell us, where are you in the process?
So basically what we have done is that on Friday we have filed a complaint that says that government officials represented by the defendants Kari Lake and Victor Morales has silenced us, silenced our journalism because we do not represent the view of the administration. Or is considered inconsistent with the administration's point of view. And in doing so, we believe that they are violating laws of freedom of the press as well as laws that protect against executive overreach, because Congress funds VOA, Congress sets up VOA, and so those are sort of like the two legal strategies that we're looking at. But today, on Monday, what we filed is a temporary restraining order, which is basically an order that says you must stop everything. But as my lawyer describes it, the boulder is already halfway down the hill. So even if we stop everything, we still have to push the boulder back to where it was, which was on March 14th, before we got that letter, before our contractor friends were fired, before the J1 colleagues were taken off the whole system. And so this is what we want. And it's not just about reinstating VOA, but reinstating VOA the way it was, where we can produce our journalism without fear or favor and having that kind of editorial independence be protected by the VOA Charter.
I would like to get your take on how this impacts journalism in the United States, not only VOA, but also other outlets.
Well, certainly here it's a chilling effect. I mean, not just for VOA, perhaps for many Americans, they're not familiar with VOA, but here inside the White House, there are other colleagues of mine who are also under attack. Of course, the attack on the Associated Press. They were not allowed to go into the Oval Office. They've been barred from getting on the plane because they do not want to say Gulf of America and instead sticking with Gulf of Mexico. I mean, that's just one example. And then also other attacks on my colleagues in the White House as well is that, there are all these different people who are now part of the White House press corps, but honestly, they're not really journalists in the traditional way that we know them to be journalists. I mean, they're basically people who are very favorable towards the administration's agenda. So all of these attacks on journalism, and then also, of course, lawsuits against 60 Minutes, lawsuits against a number of other organizations, ABC News, for example, that's a chilling effect. And so that is a chilling effect in the U.S. And if people still believe that the U.S. is a beacon of democracy and a beacon of freedom of the press, this is going to have an impact worldwide as well.
Why is Donald Trump focusing on VOA?
You will have to ask Donald Trump that. I am not in his head. But I mean, if you look at the history, he installed somebody as the director of USAGM, our parent company, in his last administration in 2021, and there was lawsuits against that as well in terms of, safeguarding our journalism. And so here we are with Donald Trump appointing Kari Lake to be the VOA director, but then knowing that there's a whole process that she needs to go through, and that includes Senate confirmation by the USAGM CEO and other technical steps. And so what they have done is have Kari Lake be the senior advisor of USAGM, and as such, she is launching all these attacks against VOA. As I mentioned, the March 15th statement about just how horrible we are, how rotten to the core we are, and all these other statements that she's made publicly. And that is something that is really concerning for our journalism and our journalists, particularly the most vulnerable of our colleagues, the J1 people. There's 47 J1 visa holders. These are journalists who are here because they're journalists hired by VOA, including 8 of them who will have to return to really hostile regimes where they will be jailed or worse.
Yeah, I read that one of the colleagues, for example, he's reported a lot on LGBTQ plus topics, and he might really end up in prison when he's sent back home, right?
Yeah, so in our law case, there are 4 John Does, and these represent the various J1 visa holders or journalists. But there are 8 people who, if they have to leave, if they no longer can hold their J1 status, then they will go back to regimes that are hostile, including Russia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and other places around the world. And don't forget that there are already 10 USAGM journalists in jail right now around the world. We do not want to add more.
So Donald Trump is basically sending journalists back to places like Russia and Myanmar.
I don't know if that is the intention, but certainly that is the impact of the attacks on VOA, because immediately, if VOA is shuttered, then the J1 visa holders can no longer stay here, and in effect, unless they can stay here through some other immigration efforts or other means, then they have to go home. And yes, they will be very much in danger. I mean, there's certainly efforts to help them right now. We are fundraising for them. If people want to Google donate USAGM, you'll find the fundraising link. But this is really just the key group of people that we're most concerned with. They need the most urgent help. But other than that, there's also contractors who've been working, doing their jobs, and now suddenly, by the end of March, they have no job, no paycheck, no health benefit, including somebody in my team who just gave birth to twins. So these are real people who need real protection and who should be able to be supported just for doing their job and just for being journalists, believing in journalistic principles.
Patsy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ines.